Hello, everyone. I'm Chris from AI Events, and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar on all kinds of cool payment options with UATP. And I'm going to introduce our host, who's Rachel from UATP, in a moment. I just wanted to welcome everyone and give a couple of housekeeping items. If you're having trouble listening, go ahead and log off of GoTo and come back. GoTo's working fine. It could be your local connection. So any issues listening or seeing the video, log off GoTo and come back, and that should fix your issue. If not, you can try another device. GoTo's running fine. Other issue is just if you have any questions, we'll get to them, and you can type them in the questions box. And I see that we have Celestino, who used to work at Cabo Verde Airlines. So welcome, Celestino. He's typed in his regards. So welcome to you, Celestino. And with that, I'll call in Rachel. So Rachel, are you there? So over to you, Rachel. Can you introduce yourself and introduce the panelists today?
Yes, thank you so much, Chris, and welcome to all of the attendees. So glad that you're here today with us. And Chris, as Chris said, my name is Rachel Morlitz. I'm the Vice President of Alternative Forms of Payment at UATP. You may have seen me and UATP in a series of webinars and podcasts that we did last year, right along with Chris and AI. We talked about UATP's alternative forms of payment solution, brought in some of our other payments partners to talk about the payments landscape throughout the COVID era, throughout 2020, and we're really excited to be back today to continue the discussion, have many of our partners with us to talk about current and future payment trends. So the format today is we do have a panel. It's going to be an open discussion, question and answers. We do have a few polls throughout for audience engagement. I know how the audience likes to participate. So then we're going to open it up for audience questions. So as Chris said, you'll be able to type those in the questions area. I have my esteemed colleague, Wendy here. She'll introduce herself in a moment. She's going to be looking at all the questions that come through. She might pop in here and there with a relevant question, but mostly she'll be saving the questions to the end. So for now, we're going to go ahead and do the quick intro of the panelists. I do have a short slide presentation, as you can see right in front of you, and then we're going to jump right into the audience polls and the questions for the roundtable. So with that, Wendy, would you like to come in and do a quick intro?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. As Rachel said, Wendy Ward from UATP. I'm the SVP of Marketing and Communications, and I will be watching for questions. So please, everybody participate. Have a good show. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Okay, and first up, we have Sophia from Fly Now, Pay Later. Sophia?
There we go. Just activating everything here. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia. As Rachel just said, I am head of partnerships at Fly Now, Pay Later. I've been at Fly Now, Pay Later for 2 years now. Have a background in travel, digital marketing, and yeah, I'm really happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if you want to tell us just a high level about Fly Now, Pay Later or some of your products.
Of course, would love to. So we're an installment payment solution exclusively for the travel industry. So we plug into the checkout page of travel providers and allow their customers to instantly spread the cost of their trip over a period of time.
Great, thank you so much.
And
next up, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, next up we have Rob Borden from Uplift joining us.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. I'm so happy to be here. I am the Vice President of Commercial here at Uplift and have been here about 3.5 years. And similar to Sophia, we offer monthly installment payments, primarily in the travel industry. We've started to expand a little bit into the travel adjacent space, but yes, we're finding great interest in the monthly installment space, especially as our travel partners are, going through what is seemingly a very aggressive recovery right now. So it's been interesting to see that monthly installment payments are definitely helping drive that recovery.
Indeed, agreed. So thanks so much, Rob. Next up, we have Todd Royer from PayPal, longtime partner of UATP.
There he is. Hello, everyone. Hi. Yep. Yeah, Todd Royer. I've been with PayPal. I'm part of our global strategic partnership relations team. And I've been with PayPal for close to 12 years, but I've been in the payment industry for about 23. Been working with a lot of our partnerships and been part of our in-store strategy, as well as numerous different parts of the organization, such as LE, our large enterprise group, as well as our partner team.
Great. Thanks so much, Todd. And finally, we have Seth from Sitcon.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Seth Friedman with Sitcon. I'm the VP of Partnerships for Sitcon. My background is actually 23 years as well. I cannot believe it, in the payments industry. 3.5 years with Sitcon. Sitcon is an alternative payments, both a gateway as well as an acquirer. So we provide a variety of mobile wallet solutions to merchants. We have over 10,000 merchants who use our services around the world, ranging from small businesses to huge corporations using our solutions for B2B type payments. Our solutions cross all sales channels, be them in person or online. We also have a fantastic partnership with PayPal. We're one of their launch partners for their in-store QR code launch in the United States, and we have deployed that, and we actually have some of the largest merchants who've implemented PayPal in store are using Sitcon as a solution provider. And we're very pleased to chat with airlines. My background, I began my career a long time ago at American Airlines, many years in travel tech, and then looking at the travel industry as a whole at Visa and MasterCard before Sitcon. So very excited to be on this webinar and talk to you a little bit about QR codes and how they fit in with a payment experience.
Great. Thank you so much, Seth. And we're just so excited to have so many of our great partners here today. I think it's maybe the largest panel that we've done. So thank you to everyone for joining. So I want to start it off before we jump into the questions for the panel and some of the audience surveys. I do want to just highlight a few slides to kind of give you an overview of the three main topics that we're going to be talking about. But first, really, when we discuss alternative forms of payment and the trends, both current and future, I really like to set the stage and define what an alternative form of payment it is. And that's really any payment that's not running on a global credit card network. So AFPs, as you know, have become very popular in the last few years. So it really means that it's become a key part of a merchant's payment strategy. And I know here at UATP, working with airlines, we've really seen a lot of airline merchants enhancing and refining their payment strategy and really thinking about alternative forms of payment. So as an airline-owned company, UATP is really uniquely positioned to help airlines address their customers' payment needs. And that's really why we go out and partner with these great payment brands to really help airlines to be able to accept the forms of payment that their customers want to use. So with that, let's go ahead and Paul, can you move it to the next slide? And we'll jump right in. So here, these are the three main topics that we're going to be covering today. First, installments, or it's also affectionately known buy now, pay later, really picking up pace in the United States and in North America and really globally. So excited to have a few of our payments partners here to discuss installments. The second continuing trend is QR codes. Now, these have really been around for a while, but I think we're really seeing somewhat of a resurgence really due to the desire for contactless payments that has occurred throughout COVID. So as Seth said, really excited to hear a little bit more about QR code technology and some of the use cases for airlines. The third trend that we're going to talk about is crypto, and I'm sure everybody's been hearing all the buzz in the news. It's been buzzy for several years, but much more so now in 2021, and it's finally starting to make some inroads in travel. So that'll be the third and final topic that we discuss. So I do have, one slide on each just to kind of give like a high level overview before we get to the panel. So if you could go to the next slide, Paul. So first, this chart has some data from a survey done in 2020 about installments, and it really shows what's driving the growth of buy now, pay later. You see some of the reasons here: avoid paying credit card interest, buying things not in the budget, borrowing without a credit check. I'm sure some folks from our panel will be able to share some more insights and reasons why, but what's really interesting is the bottom line. It's really being driven by people who can't or don't want to use credit cards, maybe just for this particular purchase, or in addition to credit cards. They may have a credit card, but for some purchases, they want to use buy now, pay later. And a lot of it we think of being driven by the millennials and Gen Zs, but we're really seeing it's across the board and across all generations. So customers are really liking their installments. Really on the merchant side though, installments have, you know, a lot of benefits. They can really help businesses increase their average order value, introduce new customers to their brand, improve conversion rates, and really build that customer loyalty. So also, you know, it's really a marketing tool as well. So we've seen merchants have been able to use it throughout the buyer's journey to really educate the customers on being able to use installments as a form of payment. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. QR codes. So QR codes really help to streamline the necessary steps in the traveler's journey. I mean, from checking in, checking bags, going through security, onboard services, payments. I'm sure we've all seen that. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There are many uses for QR codes. And it's really it's a standardized, quick, and cost-effective way for travel brands to implement. And as you can see on this slide, many airlines and airports are utilizing it. And from a recent research study done by CETA, 74% of airlines have stated they want to allow mobile touchless payments for all airline services provided along the journey from booking to arrival. So I'm really excited to discuss today what are all the different use cases in airline and the travel space. And finally, I think we have one last slide, Paul. If you want to forward, thank you. Discussing cryptocurrency. So I think everybody knows it's really been 2020 and 2021 record year for digital currencies. I mean, this slide goes through January and there were 106 million global users of crypto. I'm sure it's more now as of June, but we've really seen this increased adoption across the board. And one of the great things about crypto is that it does have lower transaction fees than many other types of payments. So that does make it attractive for merchants, but we're also seeing that even though it should be very attractive to merchants, we aren't quite seeing the adoption on the merchant side that we're seeing on the customer usage side. So I think today we're going to discuss, you know, what are some of those barriers that merchants are having. So looking forward to that discussion with the panel as well. So with that, that's our high-level overview: installments, QR codes, crypto. Those are the three main topics that we're going to be discussing today. So with that, I'd like to bring the panel back, and I think as we jump into our first topic of installments or buy now, pay later, I think we're going to start with an audience poll. So can we go ahead and bring that up as well, Chris? Okay, so this is our first poll. We want the audience members. So now you're thinking as a customer, not necessarily as a merchant. Have you used a buy now, pay later payment product to make a travel purchase in the last year? So we have several options. Yes, only once. Yes, more than once. No, but I've used it for non-travel. And finally, no, I have not used buy now, pay later at all. And so we're going to give the folks a few moments to answer. But I know Rob and I were discussing earlier that, you know, with travel, obviously, you know, travel was a bit depressed over the last year. We are seeing a resurgence. So maybe folks haven't used buy now, pay later for travel, but they may have used it in other verticals. So very curious to see how folks answer here. I don't know if you have any other comments on that as well, Rob.
Well, sorry, Rachel, the first comment I have, I'm having trouble responding to the poll. Not sure if anyone else
No,
having an
you
issue.
can't respond because you're one of the organizers, Rob.
Oh, okay.
But I think we know your answer to that, Rob. So.
Yes, obviously I'm a huge fan, but you know, it's been interesting. I'm based in Miami, and so a large portion of what I look after day to day is our cruise business. And as I'm sure everyone is aware, you know, cruise lines have not been able to restart yet. They're just hoping to restart later this month. But yet at the same time, it's been interesting. People are ready to travel, and they're still booking cruises. And so, you know, it seems like, you know, I think we're at this right point to be having this discussion, because monthly installment payments are very attractive right now to folks, not only in the cruise space, but in the airline space, the vacation package space. We've had some of the highest revenue days in our company's history across all travel categories just in the last several weeks. So yes, installments are definitely helping out our travel partners right now. And we would certainly...
Yep.
I will share the results. Yep.
Yeah.
But so for your information, I think 180 people weighed in, so that's pretty good.
Great.
So
yes.
So here, are you able to see the results, Rachel?
Yes. So very interesting. So not many have yet used buy now, pay later. Hopefully we'll see that picking up. But the ones that have, we see more in the non-travel purchase, which is what we thought it might be, given that, travel is just now ramping back up and it's been a bit depressed over the past year. So hopefully those numbers will move from the no to the yes category more and more as time goes on, because we have been seeing that buy now, pay later has really been trending upward.
So back to you, Rachel.
Yeah. So, and what I want to start with, as given what we've seen here with the responses from the audience, my first question for the panel on installments is, who is it that's making these buy now, pay later purchases, and have you seen any changes in the demographics, during COVID and post-COVID? And this is open to anyone on the panel.
I think what you said earlier, Rachel, about how there's been, it's not just for millennials or Gen Z. It's not just for, I think there's a common misconception that these installment purchases are for a younger market. And I think that, the last year at least has proven that not to be true, really. I think that it can be kind of easily categorized into two types of overall travelers. The price sensitive traveler who is looking to kind of capitalize on those early bird discounts, or doesn't want to see that high price associated with booking a trip for their family, for example. And then there's the other type of customer who, maybe wants to spend a little more, is booking higher priced trips, willing to splash the cash, and then they're using these buy now, pay later installment solutions for to add on extra baggage or to upgrade to business class and boosting ancillary revenue, right? So I'd say, like, overall, we can kind of define who our customers are into those two categories.
Great.
And less by age, I guess.
That makes sense. Rob or Todd?
I was just going to say, we're seeing the exact same thing. It's people across the board, every age, every demographic, even people with, you would think, okay, household income is really high and they've got a very high FICO score, which, is how we measure things here in the US. And you think, well, why are you interested in doing a monthly installment payment? But for whatever reason they are, and it's helping them make the decision and commit. And to Sophia's point, it's everything from, they're upselling into business class or taking a higher price trip, perhaps than they might have intended initially. They're adding on all kinds of ancillary products. And so the average transaction values go up considerably when there's a monthly payment option.
Yeah, I agree. Back in May of 2020, PayPal did commissioned a study with Forrester Consulting, and we found the same results, right? Buy now, pay later, and that no interest is very appealing to the younger crowd, right? But we also saw that as you aged, there's more of a comfort level with the just using credit in general. And because of that, it's a balance, right? As you get more comfortable, you use it more often. We also found that upfront presentment of buy now, pay later early on in the transaction cycle, actually at more of the product size, right? When you're in the ticketing stages, just looking at prices and everything, that upfront presentment drives to larger, higher average order values, and more willingness to purchase and conversion rates.
And so it sounds like that each of your company's products has really evolved to kind of meet these changing needs. I don't know if you guys want to speak to that about, different product suites that you have, or expand a little bit more on the, the up the funnel marketing that you're doing as well. do any want to comment on that?
Well, so
absolutely.
we've introduced. Oh, sorry.
We're all so excited
ahead.
about this that we're all jumping in, right?
No, I was just simply going to say a few products that we introduced during the pandemic. One is a $0 down at time of booking, which has been very popular. And then another one is our travel partners have been willing to fund a 0% APR product. So that's where the travel supplier is actually paying the interest as opposed to the customer or the guest paying the interest. And both of those have been hugely popular and really driven results.
Great. Sophia or Todd, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with Rob, definitely. I mean, we've kind of had an interest-free and then where there is a cost associated with for the travel merchant and then the one associated with the customer. And we've always kind of offered those products in conjunction with each other. But I'd say now more than ever, it's really important to kind of have that flexibility for the traveler as well as the provider, right? So I think offering those in conjunction has really been beneficial for us during the last year. And then also, I would say, as Todd said, like making these options more aware during the user journey, I think prior to checkout is really important. Because in travel we see this cart abandonment all the time, right? Like people have 15 tabs open, they're shopping around. And I think a good way for merchants to get a sort of leg up on their competitor is to, advertise that they do have this flexibility with pricing. So I think that's played a huge role in that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, PayPal has, for the longest time, have credit products in our wallet, right? As of recently, we've gone with a pay in 4 no interest model in the US, and it's really taken off, right? We've seen a lot of adoption for no interest spread out over a shorter period of time, right? We've always had the PayPal credit, which was 6 months, no interest, a lot of disclaimers on that. But yeah, the pay in 4 with the 4 easy installments, we've seen a huge uptick since we've implemented that product in market. And a lot of that has been driven with coinciding with the upfront presentment and messaging. We see it on the product pages, we see it in the cart, we see it through the payment flow, right? And if it's there, it's really providing a lot more awareness, especially for some of those not credit savvy type individuals and some of those younger crowds where they see that, they understand it, it's presented in a clean, easy fashion for them to just utilize, right? Without a huge amount of risk to them, right? If it's just quick, easy installments over a short period of time, we've seen a lot more adoption because of it.
And that makes sense. And what I really love about, installments, buy now, pay later is that I think all three of you have touched on it. It's appealing for both the customer, and the merchant. So, it's a win-win there. And so, I mean, before we go on to the next topic, I kind of just want to give, you guys a chance to, open it up to anything else you want to add, because, I'm just really curious to get your thoughts on how you see it evolving. When we look at a lot of the payments reports, we slowly see, this buy now, pay later becoming a larger and larger percentage of the overall alternative forms of payment world. Obviously alternative forms of payment have already overtaken credit cards. But, we're seeing installments become a larger part of AFP. So how do you see that trend, continuing both US and globally? If you guys want to touch on that. I see Wendy popping in. She might have a question from the audience too.
I do, surprise. While you guys are wrapping up on this question, I think this one is very valid to the audience. We did have a question asking, is there much business travel using buy now, pay later? So I think that would be good for your wrap.
That's great, yes. You guys could touch on that too.
So I'll just jump in on that. Pre-pandemic, we were seeing not a lot, but especially for small businesses and entrepreneurs and or at least small to mid-sized businesses, we were actually seeing some business in that space. Now, right now, as we all know, there's just not a lot of business travel happening still. And you look at the airlines and how they've redirected their capacity into leisure markets. So our business has followed that same trajectory. That really not a lot of people doing payments in the business space, but they are making up for it for sure in the leisure space.
That makes sense. Sophia or Todd, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. Our product was more towards the latter part of 2020 when we released that to general public. But as we've seen more traveling coming up in the recent months, yeah, we are seeing some of the small business owners and stuff utilizing the buy now, pay later to help get back into the travel scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with both Todd and Rob. I think, you know, generally speaking, we catered more towards the leisure travel market. But of course, and I think COVID had just, you know, it expands on exception after exception, right? So I think absolutely now amongst entrepreneurs and smaller to mid-sized businesses, it's a good option, right? I mean, cash flow is tight across all industries over the last year or so. So I think it's definitely a good option. Also, it depends on the region too, right? I mean, in the UK and most of Europe, there's not much travel going on, but I think domestically in the US now, we'll start to see more of that amongst smaller businesses.
Great. Well, thank you all very much for the discussion on that topic. I think with that, we're going to move to the second poll question, which is on QR codes. So if you could bring that up, Chris. So this one, last time it was more focused on the individual. This is more as a company. So is your company using QR codes as part of your traveler experience and merchandising strategy? So we have the options, yes, for non-payment options only, yes, for both payment and non-payment experiences, not yet, but we're planning to, and no plans at this time. And this is one where Seth and I were chatting a little bit about, so we'll give everybody like, you know, a moment or so to answer, but Seth and I were chatting earlier about, you know, a lot of companies may not be using it for payments, but they may be using it for non-payment experience. And I think a lot of folks have been using QR codes for non-payment experiences for a while, and we're really seeing this resurgence of QR codes in general, also in payments. So I don't know if you want to touch on that topic as well, Seth, while we're waiting for folks to answer.
Sure. So, you know, the one thing now that I've been in the QR payment space for 3.5 years, the one thing I noticed personally is that QR codes are becoming ubiquitous in our life. So, you know, my own experience is every time I go to the grocery store, I see a QR code, oftentimes with in-store couponing at my local Safeway. And if I want to buy an item, I will just open up in this case, I can click on the QR function right on my iPhone. Mm-hmm. And take a picture of that QR code. Takes me right into my Safeway application, and I get discounts. So that's a very simple use of a QR code. We're also seeing QR codes used in places like restaurants, where instead of you having handout menus, the merchant may have a QR code right on their countertop or at a table, and that can bring up your menu. And to make it really immersive, you can also complete your transaction and payment by, again, scanning a QR code and saying choose to pay, and that could bring you into payment functionality. So we're seeing QR, which stands for quick response. Quick QR codes go back to the mid-1990s. It came out of the automobile industry. But to oversimplify it down, think of a QR code, you know, very, very, very simply as a sophisticated matrix barcode. But they are becoming ubiquitous in our life. And again, you know, if you just look around, you can see them on TV advertising. You can say scan the QR if you want to know. For example, in California, you could scan the QR code to find your nearest COVID vaccination center. So again, we're seeing interesting use cases, but in the payments context, yeah.
Well, let's pause for just a second and get the results of the poll, and then we'll jump more into the detail, because I'm just so curious to see what the responses are. Well, wow, this is great. It's really across the board. So there's a lot with the non-payment options, some with both payment and non-payments. Obviously, we have a little bit more of the no's at this time, but the yeses are comprised, you know, 36%, which is a good portion. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues as we see the trend more and more picking up. So thanks to everyone from the audience for participating on that. So now we can jump back in. And actually, what I did want to ask you, Seth, is to go into, can you give us a little bit more detail on how QR codes work for airlines and what are some of their use cases, and how does it work as a payment technology for airlines?
Sure. So I would always say this is, think of a QR code as a way of quickly interacting with a consumer or a traveler. So a QR code can be very, very simple, or it can provide sophisticated information. So think of it as you take a picture or you scan a QR code. Effectively, what that does is it opens up a browser session. So at that point, you have quickly, without that consumer typing anything, having to search, having to Google it on their phone, they're quickly in an immersive experience where they have information at their fingertips. So the content that relates to what you've just, to that URL is very much up to the creativity of the merchant. So that could be just gate information, or it could be instant offers, or instant information, or so think of it, immersive. Think of it as you can pack a ton of information. So if you think about the number of characters that can be read just by scanning a QR code, it creates a pretty sophisticated way of marketing and sharing information. So I think the use cases are really up to the creativity of how that particular airline or merchant wishes to interact. So again, I used a case of like a restaurant with their menu, very simple case. You really need a plastic menu when we all live and breathe on our phones. If you can order right from your in-restaurant experience, well, the same could be with a seat upgrade, right on the spot, and it becomes very, very easy. Yes, it may take you out of your app, airline app, but it picks you right back into it. But again, the interaction, taking a picture, very simple.
Definitely. And I feel like any kind of experience now, whether travel or not, I feel like even this weekend, like the events that I went to, everything requires a QR code now to get in. And it's really all about that contactless experience. I mean, I don't know if anybody else on the panel wants to, comment from their company or personal perspective on the use of QR codes for airline use cases or other.
Yeah, I just want to say, I see QR codes, driving more and more in the future, right? Just take a step back and say, okay, let's look at just digital in general. A lot of things are converting over to digital. Driver's license, insurance cards. Now you got a lot of stores with mobile apps, right? And as you see this movement more towards the digital commerce, you're going to see QR codes become more prevalent in the market for payments, for all the use cases that Seth mentioned, right? All these things coming up, being out there. As we look at the younger crowds using phones, right? They don't carry wallets or purses much anymore. They have that device on their hands with them all the time and constantly. So with that being said, you're going to see the trend utilizing QR codes and other digital forms of payment become more relevant as we progress into the future. And I think the whole COVID thing really has pushed that adoption into digital type payments just further than what it was. It was going to get there, right? But it fast tracked it, in my opinion. So.
Agreed. And I don't know if anybody has any other personal comments that they wanted to provide from the panel, but one other question I was going to ask Seth as well. Obviously, one of the reasons, we've partnered with SitCon is, to simplify the process of accepting forms of payment for airlines. So, obviously, it'd be great if you could chat a little bit about, what's involved for an airline to accept, QR payments online at the airport, et cetera. And I saw Wendy pop in. I don't know if she has a QR code related question for the audience.
I do, and I'll just go ahead before you answer, Seth. So this actually came in a couple of times, so I thought it was relevant. Do you all think that, how is it first put, that QR codes are already old-fashioned, and is QR going to replace NFC, or is it going to be the reverse?
That's a great question.
Well, I think let me make sure I'll answer the second part first. So what I would say is this is, there's a tremendous investment in NFC. But what I would say is you definitely have a flanking strategy going on. So right before the webinar, I actually went out and I looked up American Express. So American Express actually has on their website, they've made an announcement that they are offering QR. But I think the best endorsement is not because my friend Todd's on the call, but PayPal, when PayPal has clearly has made a decision to make to have an in-store presence for QR code based functionality, or to be an in-store presence in a retail environment. Well, the technology that PayPal chose was QR based. So could have been a plastic based solution or another technology, but why was QR chosen? Well, it's not hard, it's not as hard to implement. And you avoid a lot of the complexity that comes from the card world, where you have fraud, you have multiple different ways of interacting. You have PCI. You have a lot of stuff that makes card hard. And look, I mean, I spent 15 years at Visa and MasterCard and love card. I have a wallet full of cards, but QR is very, very efficient. It's also very flexible. So when you think about the technology, you don't need a sophisticated POS device sitting at a desktop. In terms of like an implementation, what we find is, a merchant can implement an integration with Sitcon either directly or through a partner. If they want to do it, a big merchant in 30 days. And the user experience is very simple. Instead of you selecting credit card as your payment vehicle, you may say QR payment, or you may say PayPal, you may say Alipay. And at that point, if you're on a website, basically the merchant will just do an API call ultimately to Sitcon, and will deliver back a dynamic QR code that displays on the screen. The consumer just has to take a picture of their QR code with their mobile phone. Sales completed. No batching. Very, very efficient. It's very clean, and the QR codes again are dynamic. So you always want to be using a dynamic QR, so it means it's changing after a minute or a couple of minutes. And the in-store experience, it's reversed. Again, consumer opens up their PayPal or Venmo wallet, merchant scans it with a barcode scanner, transactions complete, shows up on the mobile phone. So again, is it a replacement for NFC? No, it's a different form factor, but I think it's extremely interesting that there's been so much investment in QR. And again, I think PayPal made the right decision to use that technology.
Great, and obviously, another one great reason that we've partnered with you guys to be able to bring this technology to the airline. So, are there any final comments on QR code? I want to make sure we have time for our final section on crypto and audience questions. But if there's any final comments on QR codes from the panel. Okay, I guess we're going to go to poll question, third and final poll question on crypto. So we're going to discuss a little bit about crypto and then open it up to audience questions for all three topics. So final question, what is the biggest barrier to cryptocurrencies being used as a form of payment? Price volatility, processing fees, regulatory concerns, lack of understanding. So we'll give everybody a chance to answer, but one of the things I do want to comment on, and as I said in the slides at the beginning, there's a lot of great things about crypto that are very merchant friendly, such as lower processing fees, and a lot of times the crypto processor will actually take on the risk of all the price volatility. So it can be very merchant friendly, but we know we've seen really slow adoption, high adoption among the customers, maybe not as high adoption among the merchants. I don't know if you want to comment on that a bit, Seth, before we jump into the questions in this section.
Yeah, my guess is it's probably just a lack of understanding would be my guess. This is sort of new grounds.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So do we have the results, Chris? Do you think we've given enough time for the question?
Yeah, most people voted. So let me see.
Yep. And so you're right, Seth. Lack of understanding, just over half, and obviously price volatility. And it looks like a lot of folks already know that the processing fees really aren't a concern because they do typically have low processing fees. Another good point, as I said, the volatility is usually the risk for the merchant is low because typically it's the crypto processor that's handling all of the price volatility, and the merchant will get paid in whatever currency they're used to getting paid in. So regulatory concerns and lack of understanding, big options as well. So that really makes sense. So what I wanted to cover on this, I think this is mostly going to be for you, Seth. If you have any insights from the crypto partners that you're working with, like who is making purchases using crypto, and are there any other additional advantages of using cryptocurrency other than what we were just discussing?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing, and I'm far from the expert on crypto, is we're now seeing quite a bit of merchant interest, in particular, segments of the market. So, for example, like a lot of our merchants are luxury good merchants. So, they're trying to be very creative around, affluent buyers, and I would call it tech innovators, people who are in the crypto space and wanting to use this as a method of payment. But surprisingly enough, I was speaking to a restaurant company yesterday, restaurant point of sale technology, and they said some of their merchants, and these are like quick serve restaurant merchants, are saying, hey, I would like to accept crypto because if nothing else, there is a cool factor to it. So I think we're at a very, very early stage as for, like I would call it, building acceptance brands. But I would say is there seems to be a tremendous amount of investment, a tremendous amount of interest in this space, along with buy now, pay later, which we also hear a lot about. Again, varies by vertical. Clearly not something for quick serve restaurants, but we have merchants whose you can't get an item in their shopping cart for less than $5,000. So it's a very interesting evolution in the market that we're seeing in terms of, I call it, moving beyond the traditional bank card and credit card world into a lot more innovative solutions. And crypto fits that right into that kind of overall mindset, I would say, in the merchant community.
Agreed. And I think obviously, I mean, the fact that the biggest answer on this last question was the lack of understanding. I think there's a lot more education that needs to happen. Like we certainly have the buzz now, and we see that, with most payments that come along, but then there becomes a tipping point where it goes from beyond buzz to actual usage. So then we may start seeing the merchants accept because, okay, the customers have a lot of buzz about it. Now it's time for the merchants to be able to accept those forms of payment. And I think, with the more education and the additional understanding, it's going to be a trend we're talking about. We saved this one for last because we knew installments were being used a lot. QR code is something that's being used for payments and non-payments, and it's been around for a while. And then really crypto is the one that it's just now starting to ramp up and gain momentum. So I think it's something we're going to be talking a lot about in the future. And obviously, usually the airline and travel industry is one of the last adopters of newer forms of payment. So we expect to be talking about it more in the future. It will certainly be an interesting discussion. Wendy, I don't know if you're getting any questions on crypto from the audience, and I may let if there's any last comments on crypto, our panel can certainly make them, but then we can jump right into the open question and answer session at the end across all topics.
Yeah, Rachel, really for crypto, the only question that came in, you all successfully answered. I mean, it was for crypto, especially for travel companies with fixed costs. Do you believe this won't be common until there is much less volatility? And I think all of you answered that as a positive yes.
Great. Okay, well, now we're going to open it up to questions across the board. It can be on any of the topics. So, Wendy, I'm sure you have a lot of great questions that we can go ahead and kick off with.
Sure. And so this is for any and all of you. So what do consumers need most when it comes to a booking and payment experience? I think we could spend all day on that question alone.
But it'll be great to get different perspectives from each of our panelists. So I don't know who would like to start.
I'll jump out.
Go ahead,
just for, oh, sorry. Once again, so apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, no, quick, easy ways to pay is probably the easiest way to say that, right? You make the process long, you make it, complicated, then you're less likely to see higher conversion rates. Simple, quick, easy, and that's what consumers are looking for, right? when you start adding complexities to it, that's when you start seeing a lot of drop off, right? And that's why, I mean, you look at the payment wallets that are out there now, PayPal, Venmo, others, right? We try and make it as simple as possible, like one-click flows. You're looking at preferred payment methods back in the wallet. So any of those types of things where you can make it simple, easy, like one-touch logins, things like that, preferred consumer experiences. So
that makes sense. Sophia, I know you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I think definitely, especially in travel, right? I mean, sessions will time out unless it's a quick and easy payment journey. I also think, so that's something I think us being in the alternative forms of payment sector, we can all agree on. And then another thing I think we can probably all agree on is offering payment flexibility. And flexibility, I mean, with travel, inherent to travel, there's tons of flexibility with where you want to go, who you want to book with. And I think it's really important now that we mirror that sort of flexibility with our payment methods. And we love being offered alongside of our competitors. We love being offered along other types of payment methods. I think it really kind of just hammers home the point that that's what people need, right? You need more than one option to pay for a trip.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I think we echo that at UATP as well, both on the alternative forms of payment side and on the corporate traveler side. Because a lot of times, when a customer experiences something as a leisure traveler, they want that same experience when they're a business traveler as well. So that's an excellent point, Sophia. I don't know if Rob or Seth, you have anything to add? Oh, Rob, you're on mute. There you go. I think you're back. Oh no, maybe not.
I'll comment. In general, I'm in agreement with the other panelists. It's about a very, if you've gone through the shopping journey, you want that payment journey to be very, very quick and not require a lot of data entry. Every time I buy an airline ticket, I always have to re-enter, even though my card's on file, I always have to re-enter my CVV. And I just find that to be just so annoying because, again, why do I have to do that? And then I may get a note that says your ticket will be issued in 2 hours. Well, why does that, that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I understand why. I understand maybe fraud investigation. And so again, to make that whole experience is when I click on Amazon, it says your item will be completed in 30 minutes. One click, I'm done. Very efficient. Like their product, not like their product, but it's very efficient. It's very fast. And my time was all spent on the shopping journey, not on the payment journey.
Right. I think we have Rob back now. Do you want to comment, Rob?
Yeah, sure. I don't know what I did, but yes. And just to reiterate everyone's points, the ability to have options for people to, in the payment space, it just helps with conversion tremendously. The speed at which people are approved for monthly installments, people will be surprised. So I would encourage, anybody out there that was looking at whether or not, that sounds like the right experience or option for their brand or what, just go out there and look at, some of our partners, for example, like United Airlines or Southwest Airlines, and you can actually apply and just see how quickly, you're approved. It's literally seconds. And all of this is to say, I think, sort of the meta point of what everyone is talking about today is that, payments is a way to, run a promotion, if you will, without actually having to discount. And so instead of having to discount or lower yields, et cetera, having a monthly payment kind of, helps with that. So I would encourage everyone to think about payments as a promotional tool and perhaps a way they may not have previously.
Exactly, and it's a way, to build your customer loyalty. So great point there, Rob. And back to your other point, Sophia, as well. Giving the customers choice. So you said you like having your payment brands along the other side, and it really is about offering the customers that choice and the different ways that they want to pay. So I think that's an extremely great point.
One thing I wanted to add is just when we work with merchants, many merchants come to us and say, you help us drive incremental revenue because you can help us reach people who we don't otherwise reach, who may not be carrying a traditional card-based product, or they may be an international person who may be residing in one country, but their funds are within a wallet that is tied to their bank in China or Indonesia or Korea. So we help merchants really drive incremental revenue, and that's really one of the value propositions that our merchants strongly believe in. Is a key value we bring, in addition to technology, in addition to multiple payment options, settlement services, but we can help them bring incremental business.
And there's Wendy with another question from the audience.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a really good one because we've talked a lot about conversions and incremental sales. Really kind of on the back end for buy now, pay later, are you having issues for reconciliation? So I think from maybe the operational back end side with buy now, pay later, if you could discuss some of that.
Yeah, from our standpoint, no. I mean, the reconciliation part on the back end, no. The way our buy now, pay later works, right, from a merchant standpoint, we pay up front and PayPal then turns around, or Venmo collects from the consumer, right? And we have that relationship with both the merchant and the consumer. So it's very easy to reconcile from our standpoint. I can't speak for the others, but yeah, we've made it simple in the way that the consumer can choose how to reimburse over time for those payments. And so, yeah, from that standpoint, our users find it very easy, find it simple to reconcile. We, PayPal, find it easy and simple to reconcile. So, yeah, it's really not that big of a challenge. So.
Yeah. I definitely agree with Todd. I think that, we pay our merchants upfront instantly as well. So that on that side, it's fine. And then with the customers, I think during the last year and a half, more cancellations and refunds than ever before, we've really refined these processes and actually built out automated systems to accommodate these processes. Our operations team is fully trained in how to handle all of this. And I'd say that, one good thing to come out of all of this drama is like a very clean, seamless process for this end.
Rob, did you want to comment on that as well?
Yes, I would just simply reiterate what Todd and Sophia said. I mean, we pay our partners upfront at the time of booking. And then, yes, if the guest or customer is, due any kind of refund or there's a cancellation, et cetera, it works just like it would if, the guest had chosen any other form of payment. It's just instantaneous.
I mean, honestly, that's one of the great things about our partnerships with you guys, especially with, the forms of payment that settle via UATP. That makes it very simple for the merchant. And obviously, as you guys said, the merchant's getting their full payment, that, you're dealing with the customer on the installment. So we do help to make that, a whole settlement and reconciliation process seamless for the merchant. So, and Wendy, do you have another question, it looks like?
They do. They keep coming in. Thank you, guys. So there's been several dealing with this, and getting your opinions would be fantastic. So why is it important to offer bespoke payment options to your customers and not adopt a one-size-fits-all model?
Well, I'll jump in on that. I mean, I think all of us, I suspect, appreciate having choices, and I know for sure there's been plenty of marketing studies and consumer behavior studies that when people are presented with at least a narrow set of choices, it improves, overall, conversion, satisfaction with the transaction, likelihood to rebook, et cetera. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach, and especially, just we've all said, coming out of this horrible time that we've been through, there's definitely a need for some different types of payment options. So yeah, I've never been a fan of a one-size-fits-all approach, and I certainly think, to Sophia's point earlier, having being alongside the competition, so to speak, is fine because we're all going to be at different stages in our ability to pay, willingness to pay, budgeting, etc. So yeah, I think I'm definitely not going to endorse a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at this from a consumer lens, right? I like choice. I like to pay the way I want to pay for certain things, right? I may use a debit card for that $10 transaction. I may use a credit card for that $1,000 transaction. I may use a secured method of payment online that doesn't reveal any bank account or credit card information, right? So it's a choice, and the consumer choice. And when they have that choice, it's going to drive the sales. Just plain and simple.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even within this optionality, being a very niche payments company, like so only for travel, we have benefits that we see being, catering specifically to this vertical, right? So we can accommodate a slightly higher basket value than other, installment solutions in the industry. And we also incorporate this travel data that we've been gathering over all of these years that we've been active to into our credit risk and decision-making engine. So it also opens up our acceptance rate to people who wouldn't maybe normally qualify for another buy now, pay later solution. So, offering flexibility within the flexibility is something that we feel very strongly about.
And again, another reason why we have all of you great payments partners on is, we realize that our airline, owners, their customers want to have choice, as Todd said. So being able to help airlines, offer any form of payment that their customers want is really what we're seek to doing with all of our great partnerships. So I think we have Wendy. We might have time for one more, Wendy.
Yeah, and we do. There's been lots of great questions coming in, so I'm sorry if we weren't able to get to all of them. But I think for a wrap up, this question is great. So what is the most important thing to consider when enhancing your company's payment strategy and leading into the future?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this real quick. There's a lot of different factors, right? So consumer preference, you got to look at the strategy from a lens of both financial, from a consumer, from an adoption and conversion standpoint. I mean, plain and simple, right? If you got the consumers driving what they want, you have the products and services that can deliver what the consumer wants, that's going to ultimately entail where your strategy should go, right? I know, like I mentioned earlier, consumers like choice, right? But not all choices are financially or operationally feasible for most companies, right? So that's where you got to weigh in the optionality, right? If you can find an easy way to adopt consumer preference and consumer choice in a fashion that's going to drive revenue and sales, ultimately should be where you're focusing that strategy on.
Makes sense. Any other folks want to comment?
Well,
I mean, I think it really.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob. No, you take it. You take it.
No, I was just simply going to say, I mean, I think, just taking it back even to the QR code discussion, cryptocurrency, clearly things are evolving, and I think are evolving a bit more quickly as a result of what we've all been through this past year. And so to Todd's point, and others have made this point as well, like this space and payments are evolving, and it's something that I think perhaps it was a bit of a stagnant space for a long time, but it has really started to evolve in the last couple of years, and certainly in the last year. So it's something I would say, stay on top of it. And, again, back to that point that payments can now be viewed as a promotional way to talk about your product and sell your product versus having to rely on discounting like we've done for so long.
Great. Sophia?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think just the concrete thing to keep in mind when you sort of evaluate what your company's payment strategy is just to really keep in mind who your customer is and how you can best service them. I think it's been a tumultuous relationship between the travel merchant and the customer over the last year and a half. And I think it's more important now than ever to really sort of rebuild that relationship and that trust and that, just to rebuild that back up. And I think offering, payment methods and things that will best service your customer, whilst that sounds so basic and so easy, I think it's the most important thing to keep in mind. Like, how can you rebuild your relationship with them? And I think that's what's most important.
Seth, do you have any final comment before I wrap up?
Only thing I would add is just keep in mind that as part of a payment strategy, think of it as also as you're reaching as you're looking at different options, is you're reaching different buyers, and there is a real opportunity to say competitively to say I'm able to reach buyers how they want to pay, they want to pay, or consumers how they want to pay, but also think of it as if you're reaching somebody who does not have a traditional form of payment. You're now able to say, I can sell to them when before you might actually turn them away. So there really is a top line revenue aspect to it, beyond all the things like PCI, cost of acceptance. Think of it broadly as part of a strategy around demand generation, customer satisfaction.
Agreed. So thank you so much, everybody, for your great responses to the final question and through all the questions throughout. And thanks to our audience. And, one final reminder, as on this last question, that's one of the things that UATP is here for, is to help with your payment strategy. That's why we work with these great payment partners, is to help airlines and our other members accept these great forms of payment. So please do reach out afterwards. I know Chris is going to be sending a follow-up email probably with a link to this webinar and some of the other great webinars that UATP has done. I know Uplifts has done some great webinars directly with AI as well. So please do seek those out for information, and please do contact us afterwards if you'd like to discuss your payment strategy. So with that, I'd like to say, a final thank you.